Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I'm not going to be doing a full review because I have not put enough time into the game, but I wanted to do a little mini review, like a kind of first impressions type video here of Balatro, because this game has been popping off on YouTube and Twitch and everything. People love the game. Lots of content creators are talking about it, how addictive it is and how simple it is and how easy it is to pick up, how cheap it is. It won 3 Game Awards at the game at 3 Game of the Year awards. Not Game of the Year, Game Awards at the Game Awards, and was in the running for Game of the Year. Very, very successful game for how small it is. It's a little poker simulator type thing that marries some roguelike elements into it. So I want to talk about it today and my impressions of it. I ended up getting it on my phone since I figured that'd be the easiest way to play it. And it has been an absolute delight. Now, I really love roguelike games. The Binding of Isaac is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, maybe top 15. But I really love the roguelike idea. I love the different runs and having things change each and every time. And Balatro does this very, very well. Like I said before, this is a poker simulator of sorts. You get a hand, a certain set number of cards. This can be varied based on the type of deck that you choose. Let me start on the basics here. So you start off picking off a deck. You start off with just one. You can unlock more decks as it goes on. They're different colors. They give you different advantages, like an extra card in your hand size or an extra chunk of change to start off your run, or just lots of different things that will either buff or negatively impact your game depending on what deck you choose. Gives you a different challenge every single time, which is very, very cool. And the more that you play, the more you unlock. Very, very roguelike, as if you are familiar with anything in the genre. So you pick your deck, you go into your first blind is what it's called. You start off against a pretty easy hand. You're just trying to score as many points as possible. You don't have any modifiers your first time going, so you just play your best hands. If you're familiar with poker at all, you're going to be getting like pairs, 3 of a kind, full house, straights, flushes, stuff like that. And the better your hand is, the more that you score. So you choose up to 5 cards. You don't have to choose 5 cards. You could do 1 card and play high card and just get scored off of that one. Each individual card gets scored based on its typing, so the numbered cards will be scored exactly the way that they're numbered, and then face cards will be 10, and then aces are 11. Now you have to get pairs and an actual poker hand in order to score higher stuff. They'll give you different multipliers based on the how rare the hand is, essentially. So if you get a flush, it'll give you a very high multiplier. So you get points for each thing. You get a base set of chips, as it were. That's the currency that you get to try and the points that you need to get to score out of your round. So in the first one, let's say you're trying to get 300 chips to win. You have 4 hands. You get to play 4 hands in order to try and get 300 chips. If I play a flush, it's going to start off with a base number of chips, 50 or something like that. It's going to have a 4 multiplier because it's such a hard hand to get. And then it will give you extra chips based on each thing. So an ace will score you 11 chips, a king 10, stuff like that. So you get your chips together, you pass it, and you go to the shop after you have beaten that first round, and you can buy what are called joker cards that will give you modifiers. Now this is where the genius of Balatro comes into play and what makes it such a unique experience. You'll buy these joker cards that will give you modifiers based on a variety of things. Some will give you, every time you play a diamond, you'll get a +3 modifier for that hand, which is really very valuable, or a spade, or a variety of those things. You can also get stuff you get a certain modifier for if you play a 2 pair or a singular pair or 3 of a kind. You have other things that say all cards are treated as face cards. So if you have a modifier for a joker card that says you get $1 for every face card that you play, $1 to spend in the shop, then you get another modifier that says all cards are treated as face cards. Every single time you play a hand, you are making money that you can spend in the shop to buy more jokers, or buy other things like tarot cards that will level up your hand. So like I said before, a pair might be something like 20 chips as the base value and a 1 multiplier or a 2 multiplier. If you buy a tarot card that levels up the singular pair, now it's a level 2, you'll get a higher multiplier and a higher base chip value at the base once you play that hand next time. It's a really genius system. Each run is unique, so you have to do this all over again each time you play it. So leveling things up only happens inside the run itself. You reset to 0 once you start a new run, like any good roguelike would. So you can do all sorts of things to modify your run to make certain hands more valuable. I had one just barely where I played where I had like a full house, but a 3 of a kind was a better modifier for me, a better base chips and base modifier, and would have netted me more points than if I had played the full house somehow. So stuff like that can really come into play. The more you invest in leveling up certain hands or buying certain jokers and trying to get certain synergies and combos going, the better off you're going to be. And again, the genius comes from buying these jokers and seeing how you can synergize them. In one of my very first playthroughs, I ended up winning the entire run, which I haven't been able to replicate since. I was like, man, this game is not too hard. I just got a really good run, lots of good combinations of jokers. Like I said before, I had one where all face cards or all cards were treated as face cards, and I was getting money from another joker, so it was a crazy synergy where I was just getting as much money as I possibly could. I had another one where like every time I re-rolled in the shop, it added a multiplier to one of my joker cards. So you can like sometimes modify your joker cards as you go along. There's another one that's like, if you play a tarot card, it will add another multiplier to your joker card. It's every single tarot card you've played for the entire round. So even if you pick up the joker card later on, like the tarot joker here, it will say you've played 5 tarot cards this round, so this is a 5 multiplier. The mixing and mingling the jokers is so brilliant. Now you start off with 5 slots for the joker slots, so you can only utilize those 5. You have 2 consumable slots. You can upgrade these slots with vouchers that you buy in the shop. You get a special voucher per every 3 hands. The boss blind is the last one, so you have like small blind, bigger blind, and the boss blind. Once you beat the boss blind, it resets the voucher in the store, so you get something new. If you've missed out on the one before, you missed out. You typically cost like $10. They do things like adding an extra hand that you can play every time. So instead of starting off with 4 hands to score, you get a 5th one, or you can increase your hand size every single time. So you get an extra card in your hand, so you have more options to play. You have things that modify your discard. You have options like instead of playing a card, you can discard up to 5 cards in your hand and get new stuff to try and bolster your chances of getting something new, something better. There are all sorts of things that will modify hand size, the many type of hands you can play, the discard size, type of discards, the consumable size, stuff that will just increase your chances of winning and getting to the very end. Because the more you level up, the more you pass like each and every blind, the higher the ante is, as it were. You have to surpass a new threshold. So 300 chips might be the starting value. The boss blind might be 600 chips. And then after that, it's going to keep climbing more and more and more. And it's going to be more difficult to get the points unless you are investing in those jokers. Now, you can only hold up to 5 jokers, but you can also sell them. So if you want to get rid of some of them, you want to get a new synergy, you see something in the shop that looks really nice, you can do that. Or you can also buy like little booster packs in the shop to add different cards to your deck. So you have a standard deck that you get with 52 cards. You could buy a bunch of extra 9s if you buy enough booster packs that drop 9s. So now you have a better chance of getting 4 of a kind or getting full houses with that specific card. Or if you have more face cards, it's just genius how they implement these little things that do change your runs so drastically. They don't seem like they could. You also have modifiers for individual cards. You have things like glass cards that have a chance of breaking, so you don't get to score them, but they might give you a better modifier for that specific hand that you play. You have little gold seals that give you other modifiers. You have gold cards that if you keep them in your hand at the end of the round, it gives you money for purchasing in the shop, for some more purchasing power. There's tons of different mods that will impact the cards themselves too, playing them or keeping them in hand. It's just, again, this is genius. The way they implemented all this stuff to be so cohesive. And again, like things like taking into account how many times you've played a specific hand for the entirety of the run. So if you get a joker card that says however many times you've played a specific hand, you get that many multiplier for it. I just barely got that one. I'd played two pairs like 10 times, I had assumed at that point. Sure enough, I play the next hand, I get an 11 multiplier for it because I've played it 11 times now. It keeps track of stuff like retroactively. It always has a knowledge of the cards that you've played, the amount of tarot cards you've used, the planetarium cards that you've used. It's just really genius. So I'm really just scratching the surface at this point. I've unlocked several decks. I've played with a lot of different decks. I quite like the idea of seeing like this deck unlocks once you beat a run with the red red deck. I love stuff like that. It gives you a hint of what to do. I love seeing the unlocks pop when you do certain things like winning a certain amount of blinds or being enough boss blinds. I also just got into like the skipping the blinds. I didn't really realize that was a mechanic, but you can skip them and it'll give you a little tag. Now you get rewards for beating these blinds. You get a certain amount of money per each blind that you do. The fewer hands that you play typically gives you more money. It gives you like interest on top of the stuff that you have just sitting in the bank. So if you're not spending your money, you get money on top of that. There are lots of things you can do there. But if you decide to skip the blind, you get a tag that says, if you skip this here, you might get a reward later on, or like something like you get $20 if you beat the boss blind, but you skip this one itself. And that there is some advantage there. You might say, wow, that's a really good deal. I'm going to get 20 free bucks. But if you don't play the middle blind and you don't get the shop, where you could buy some awesome jokers, you might lose the boss blind. The bosses have lots of different conditions, like certain suits will be debuffed, so you don't get to score off of them. So I play my diamond cards, but they don't get points off of them. You can still play the hand, so I can still play a full house using the debuffed cards, but I won't get as a high score on those specific cards. Or other things like some of the most stringent ones are like play one hand, which is really scary. Playing one hand can be a really big thing. Or you only get one discard or 0 discards, or there's a big number of what the boss blind conditions have to be met. Some of them have to be like, you have to play a different type of hand each and every time. So if I play 2 pair, I can't play 2 pair ever again. I won't get scored on that. Or another one where you can only play the first hand that you score. So if I play 2 pairs, I have to play 2 pairs for the rest of the time, or I'm not going to get scored. It's just genius. And these can be the deciding factors in a run. That's typically what trips you up, is the boss blinds with some condition that you can't quite meet. Again, this is a genius game. I love what it is. I can see why everyone's playing it. It's on major consoles, it's on phone, it runs beautifully on the phone. I think the touchscreen controls are exactly right. I would probably recommend it there. I got like a $2 Google Play credit. Ended up buying it for like $8. I think it's very much worth the value. It's cheaper on the App Store as well. If you want to try out Balatro, I highly recommend it. It's super cheap. It's very accessible. If you like card games like I do, or you like stuff like Yahtzee, this is the same kind of idea. You're playing the same type of stuff, just with cards instead of dice, and vice versa there. I just really like that style of games. I do enjoy a good card game, a good poker game. I do like Yahtzee quite a bit. So it definitely was for me. I've again, just scratching the surface, but having a great time. I plan on putting a lot more time into this one. I'll give a more full, extensive review of kind of the deeper mechanics as I go along, some of the Joker combinations I've done, and hopefully capture some gameplay as well. I might have some gameplay sprinkled in here and there. I might record a couple hands here, but if not, hopefully you enjoyed this here, and go out and check out Balatro. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.